Clear.
Clear.
Race you to the fence.
You're too slow. I'm already winning.
28 million Americans remain uninsured.
We're fine.
28 million Americans remain uninsured.
We're fine. We need to move faster. Get the crash cart ready. If only we had found it sooner.
If only we had found it sooner.
Vitals are dropping. Push 2 of epi now. If only we had found it sooner.
They said he was just a sick kid, until the X-ray showed a heartbeat inside his stomach. In a forgotten town called Red Hollow, a 14-year-old boy became the headline no one could explain, the boy they called pregnant. But what the world saw as a miracle was really a tragedy built by poverty, silence, and a system that never cared. If this story makes you question what's truly broken, don't scroll. Subscribe and tell me in the comments. Do you think love can save someone when medicine fails? Soft static fades in. The faint rhythmic beep of a heart monitor. Voices blur beneath fluorescent light. "Pressure's dropping," said Dr. Karen Ellis, her voice steady but sharp. 90/60. He's crashing. The nurse leaned over the pale figure on the gurney. "Charging to 200. Ellis raised her hand. Clear. A burst of electricity ripped through the room, thump, then silence. The monitor flatlined, a single haunting tone stretching thin through the air. "Doctor." Ellis stared at the screen, her face expressionless beneath the surgical mask. "We could have caught this earlier," she whispered almost to herself. "If he'd come in sooner." The sound of the flatline merged slowly into the hum of an old radio, as though death were changing stations. A low male voice began to narrate. In Red Hollow, silence travels faster than sirens. On the day a heart stopped beating, another heart began to break. The soundscape shifts from sterile hospital echoes to the creak of a screen door, the buzz of cicadas, and the hum of distant traffic. The town of Red Hollow baked under a heavy Kentucky sun. Dust lifted from the dry earth and clung to every step. In the far corner of Maple Grove Trailer Park, an old aluminum trailer leaned slightly to one side, its door hanging crooked on one hinge. Inside, 14-year-old Noah Whitaker stood motionless behind the thin wooden door, one eye pressed to the narrow crack where light leaked through. Outside, the neighborhood boys sped down the dirt road on their bikes, laughing, kicking up clouds of dust. "Hey, pregnant boy," one of them shouted. "Don't forget your baby shower." Laughter echoed across the empty lots, bouncing between the trailers like a cruel refrain. Noah didn't move. He watched them disappear round the bend, their laughter fading, replaced by the drone of cicadas. He let the curtain fall. The room dimmed. The air inside was thick, part detergent, part old metal, part loneliness. The hum of the refrigerator was the only constant sound. Noah's mother, Rebecca Whitaker, wasn't home yet. She'd be working her second shift at Quick Wash Laundry, folding other people's clean clothes until midnight. Noah crossed the small living room. The floorboards creaked under his feet. In the corner, a cracked mirror caught his reflection. A thin boy, pale skin, eyes too old for his age. And then there was the belly. He pulled his oversized t-shirt tighter, but it didn't help. His stomach curved outward round firm alien. He touched it gently at first, then with more pressure as though trying to convince himself it was real. He didn't remember when it started. Maybe 6 months ago, maybe a year. At first Rebecca said it was just baby fat. Then she stopped saying anything at all. Noah moved closer to the mirror. His breath fogged the glass. He whispered, as though afraid the trailer walls might hear, "What's wrong with me?" No answer came, only the low hum of the radio in the background. He twisted the dial until a faint broadcast broke through the static, a preacher's voice, slow and trembling. "The Lord giveth life in mysterious ways, and sometimes he taketh it in the same." Noah switched it off. Silence returned. He sat on the edge of the couch, pulling his knees to his chest, though the motion was awkward with the weight of his stomach. The air conditioner coughed weakly. Sweat trickled down his temples. Outside, the sound of distant thunder rolled over the hills. Somewhere a dog barked. He thought about school, the stairs, the laughter, the teachers who didn't ask questions because they didn't want the answers. His hand drifted back to his belly. He could feel something deep beneath the surface, a slow, steady pulse that wasn't quite his own. A wave of nausea hit him. He bent forward, gasping, eyes wide with terror. "Stop!" he whispered to his body. "Please, just stop." The pulse continued faint, but undeniable. Soft, uneasy music builds beneath the narration. He stood again and looked in the mirror. His reflection stared back, pale and trembling, framed by the flickering light from the broken lamp above. Outside, a truck engine started. The boy's laughter returned for a brief moment, distant, ghost-like. Noah pressed a hand to his stomach and whispered almost in disbelief. They were right. His voice cracked. "They called me the pregnant boy." The sound of a slow heartbeat fades in one beat, then another until it blends into static and disappears. The sun rose over Red Hollow like a slow confession. Maple Grove Trailer Park stirred awake a door, slam a cough, the shuffle of feet. Inside the Whitaker trailer, Rebecca smoothed wrinkled bills across the kitchen table. Rent, propane, groceries, phone. Each word carried a price. The word doctor was written at the bottom, but no number followed. The radio murmured through static. "More than 28 million Americans remain uninsured," the host said. Rebecca turned it down and whispered, "We're fine," as if saying it made it true. Noah padded in barefoot, pale. "You don't have to wait up," he said. "Didn't Rebecca lied?" rubbing tired eyes. "How's the belly?" "Same." She poured coffee, the smell strong enough to fill the silence. On the fridge hung a handwritten note, "Ambulance ride. $850. Noah's eyes lingered on it, then away. Outside, bike tires crunched gravel. Laughter from two boys broke through the walls. Rebecca tried to smile. "Mrs. Dalton dropped pie off yesterday," Blueberry Noah said quietly. "That woman's an angel with a burnt halo." Mrs. Dalton lived 3 trailers down, a retired nurse who grew tomatoes in buckets and said things like, "Don't let pain linger, honey. Small things grow big." Rebecca never answered, just nodded and shut the door faster. The trailer smelled faintly of soap and old metal. Rebecca cleaned the counter in small circles. "School, okay." Noah shrugged. He didn't have to say what everyone called him. The word pregnant hung in the air like humidity. "I can help Mrs. Dalton with her plants later," he said. "Don't go far," she replied. Hours later, Rebecca tied her apron at Quick Wash Laundry. The hum of dryers filled the room. She liked the order of it. Soap, spin, heat, like turning chaos into something clean. On the bulletin board by the clock-in sheet, a flyer curled free checkups. Hope Clinic, Tues, Thurs. "Morning," Becky said Dale from the counter. "You hear about that kid on the news born with his twin inside him? Wild, huh?" Rebecca's hand froze over the laundry. Didn't hear she said softly. At lunch, she sat alone in the break room, ham sandwich in hand, watching a muted news report about the same story. The caption read, "Rare condition shocks doctors." Her reflection stared back from the TV screen, ghost-like in the glare. When her shift ended, heat shimmered off the pavement. A church van handed out food boxes by the trailer park entrance. She waved at the volunteers and walked home, shoulders aching from both work and thought. Noah sat on the steps, a paperback open on his knees. He stood quickly when she approached. "You okay?" she asked. "Yeah, just reading." "What's it about?" He turned the cover toward her. A road stretched into an endless sky. She didn't know the title, but she knew the look, hope mixed with distance. "Mrs. Dalton said she'll pay me $5 to move her planters next week," he added. Rebecca hesitated. Her first instinct was no. Her second was not yet. Her third, the one that knew money never asked permission, was, "That's kind of her." Inside, the air was thicker than outside. Rebecca opened a window. Curtains fluttered like tired ghosts. "You eat?" she asked. "Yeah," he lied. She filled a pot with water, set it on the burner. The radio came back to life, a tired host reminding listeners, "Don't wait, folks. Early checkups save lives." The phrase sounded rehearsed, like a prayer that no one believed. Noah sat at the table, tracing the wood grain. His belly tugged beneath his shirt. "Mom," Rebecca looked up. "If I needed to see a doctor?" His voice faltered. "Not now. Just if." She turned off the stove, the coil dimming from red to black. The radio hissed softly between stations. She sat across from him and reached for his hand. "We'll figure it out," she said. It was a promise built from air, but strong enough to stand on for now. Outside, thunder grumbled over the hills. Rain came steady, soft, 1,000 tiny knocks on the tin roof. The smell of wet dust filled the room. Noah went to the door, cracked it open. 2 boys sped by on their bikes, rain plastering their shirts, but they didn't look his way this time. He leaned against the doorframe and let the cool air touch his face. Behind him, the pot began to boil. Rebecca turned down the radio and listened to the storm instead. She thought of the Hope Clinic flyer she'd seen curling on the corkboard, its edges browned from neglect. She imagined the words "free checkups" lifting off the paper like a ghost trying to leave the nail. "Dinner in 10, she said, and for a moment between thunder and breath, the trailer felt almost like safety. The sky over Red Hollow thickened with heat, the kind that made air feel heavy like you were breathing through cloth. Noah woke before dawn, drenched in sweat. His belly pulsed under his palm, slow, rhythmic, unfamiliar. He sat up, breathing shallow. The trailer was silent except for the ceiling fan's tired groan. On the wall, a calendar curled at the edges. June. Red marker circles surrounded no dates. Rebecca was already gone. Her coffee mug rinsed and turned upside down on the counter. She'd left a note in pencil. Left early. "Call if it gets worse." Noah pressed a hand to his stomach. "It's fine," he whispered, though the words sounded like a lie. Outside, sunlight glared off the metal trailers. Cicadas screamed from the trees. When Rebecca returned that evening, Noah was curled on the couch, knees drawn close, eyes glassy. "Baby," she said, kneeling. "It hurts." Where he guided her hand to the left side of his stomach. Under her palm, something shifted like a slow turn beneath the skin. She froze. "It's just gas," she muttered, pulling her hand away. Noah shook his head. "It moves." Rebecca forced a laugh. "Everything moves. Muscles, food." "Not like that." The air between them turned brittle. Rebecca stood and busied herself with the dishes, the clink of porcelain trying to erase what they'd felt. At dusk, the door creaked open and Mrs. Dalton appeared, holding a plate wrapped in foil. "Leftover chicken, sweetheart." Rebecca smiled tightly. "You shouldn't have." The old woman's eyes drifted to Noah on the couch. "He's pale." "He's tired," Rebecca said quickly. Dalton stepped closer, voice low. "You hear it, don't you? That sound he makes when he breathes." Rebecca stiffened. "It's nothing." Dalton looked around the trailer, taking in the worn carpet, the unpaid bills on the counter. You don't need money to walk through a clinic door, honey. Rebecca wanted to believe that, but she knew better. Those doors don't open for free. The older woman sighed. I was a nurse once. I've seen too many mothers wait too long. She laid the foil on the counter and left. Thunder rumbled as night fell. Rain tapped the roof in uneven patterns. Rebecca sat beside Noah, brushing damp hair from his forehead. His skin burned. He whispered, Mom, it's beating again. Don't think about it, she said, trying to sound calm. I can feel it. Like it's inside me. Rebecca pressed her ear gently against his belly. For a moment, nothing. Then a faint thud, steady, undeniable. Her breath caught. She jerked upright, eyes wide. You didn't hear that, she said too quickly. Noah's voice cracked. I did. Rebecca stood pacing. The rain outside grew heavier, wind slapping the thin walls. She grabbed her phone thumb, hovering over 911. The memory of a Bill ambulance ride, $850, flashed in her mind. Her thumb froze. Noah watched her. Mom. She forced a smile. It'll stop. You'll see. But it didn't. Near midnight, Noah vomited into the sink, pink foam swirling down the drain. Rebecca held him upright, panic clawing through her chest. That's it, she whispered. She dialed. Emergency. What's your address? Rebecca stared at the cracked linoleum. The operator repeated. Ma'am. Her voice broke. Never mind. She hung up. The rain drummed harder. She found an old sweater, wrapped it around Noah's shoulders. We're going, she said. To the hospital. To Hope Clinic. They take everyone. Lightning flashed briefly, turning the trailer silver. Rebecca lifted Noah onto her back. He was heavier than he looked, but she didn't stop. They stepped into the rain. Mud clung to her shoes. Water soaked through her jeans, cold against her knees. The road out of Maple Grove curved through pine woods, and each flash of lightning showed the next few yards. Halfway down the road, a truck slowed beside them. The driver leaned out. Need a ride? Rebecca shook her head, clutching Noah tighter. We're fine. He hesitated, then drove off. Red taillights fading into the storm. Noah's head rested on her shoulder. It's loud, he murmured. The thunder numbered inside. She tightened her grip. Don't talk. Save your breath. By the time they reached the outskirts of Red Hollow, the rain had softened to mist. The neon cross above Hope Clinic flickered between blue and white. Rebecca pushed through the glass doors. The waiting room smelled of disinfectant and wet coats. A volunteer nurse looked up. Can I help you? My son? Rebecca gasped. He needs to see someone. The nurse handed her a clipboard. Fill this out, insurance. Rebecca shook her head. And charity care. It'll take a moment. Rebecca looked down at Noah, slumped in the chair, his lips pale. We don't have a moment. The nurse caught the look in her eyes, picked up the phone. Dr. Ramirez, you're needed front desk. Possible emergency. Moments later, Dr. Lucas Ramirez appeared, stethoscope swinging from his neck sleeves rolled to the elbow. He knelt beside Noah. How long's this been happening? Rebecca swallowed. Months. Maybe longer. He pressed gently on Noah's abdomen. Pain here. Noah nodded weakly. Ramirez looked up at Rebecca. Why didn't you bring him sooner? Her voice cracked. We couldn't afford to. His expression softened, but not enough to hide the frustration beneath. Let's get him inside. As they wheeled Noah down the narrow hall, Rebecca caught her reflection in the clinic's glass door. Wet, trembling eyes wide with something between terror and relief. For the first time in months, she'd chosen the sound of sirens over silence. Rebecca sat in the cold hallway of Hope Clinic, her clothes still damp from the rain. The fluorescent lights buzzed overhead, pale and steady. Behind the curtain, she could hear Dr. Ramirez speaking softly to Noah. The rhythm of medical words, blood pressure scan, ultrasound blurred into a low, humming prayer. She folded her hands and stared at her reflection in the metal door. The woman, looking back, seemed older than she remembered, creases around the eyes, wet hair plastered to her forehead, the kind of face that had learned how to keep quiet. When Dr. Ramirez stepped out, His eyes were kind but heavy. "He's resting," he said. "We're running some tests. You can come in." Rebecca hesitated before pulling the curtain aside. Noah lay under thin blankets, a small oxygen tube under his nose. Machines blinked, measured, decided things for him. "You're his mother?" Ramirez asked. She nodded. "How long has he had the swelling?" She wanted to lie, to say a week, maybe 2. But the truth came out soft, cracked. Almost a year. Ramirez inhaled, not angry, just tired. "Has he ever had a scan? Any regular checkups?" Rebecca shook her head. He scribbled something on his chart. "Sometimes early checkups save lives." He said the sentence too rehearsed, too kind to be judgment. Rebecca's eyes filled. "Do you have children, doctor?" "Not yet," he said gently. "But I grew up poor. I know what it's like when help feels too far away." She wanted to believe him. When he left, she sat beside Noah's bed and took his hand. His skin was cool, the veins faint under the surface. The steady beep of the monitor filled the silence. And then the memory began to rise. The year was 2000. She was 20 and scared, lying in a hospital bed under lights that hummed the same sterile song. 2 heartbeats inside her, then one strong one faltering. The doctor, a man with silver glasses, had spoken fast like someone reading from a script. "1 twin's not viable. We'll need to operate immediately after birth. You'll need coverage." She'd shaken her head. "I don't have insurance." "Then the surgery's out of pocket," he said. "We can give you payment options." Payment options. As if grief came with a billing plan. Hours later, one cry had filled the room. The other never came. They let her hold the breathing one, her Noah. She remembered the weight, the warmth, the way his tiny chest rose and fell. The nurse whispered condolences, but the doctor was already gone, moving on to someone who could pay. When she left the hospital, she signed a paper she didn't understand. It said, "Incomplete removal of fetal tissue." She thought it meant nothing. She just wanted to take her baby home. The first few years, Noah was fine, thin, but strong, quiet, but bright. Then the stomach aches started, the fatigue, the way he'd flinch when she touched his belly. Each time she'd promise herself she'd take him in. Each time she'd count the bills and promise later. Later never came. Rebecca blinked back to the present. The rain outside had stopped. The world beyond the window looked washed clean, but still gray. Dr. Ramirez returned with a cup of water. "He's stable. For now," he said. "We'll transfer him to Red Hollow General for a full scan." Rebecca flinched at the word hospital. He noticed. "Don't worry, they'll take care of him." Her voice was almost a whisper. "They took care of me once, too." Ramirez paused, sensing the history in her tone. "Mrs. Whitaker, whatever happened then, it isn't your fault." She met his eyes. "Maybe not, but it's still my consequence." He didn't answer. When he left again, Rebecca reached for Noah's hand. The machine beside him kept time like a metronome, precise and indifferent. She leaned close, whispered, "I'm sorry, baby." The lights dimmed as a nurse adjusted the blinds. For a moment, Rebecca saw her own shadow stretch over Noah's body, thin, wavering, almost protective. The narrator's voice settled into the quiet. She wasn't just hiding a sickness, she was hiding her guilt. And in Red Hollow, guilt was heavier than any disease. The ambulance doors swung open beneath the washed-out morning sky. Rebecca stepped down first, her shoes slick on the wet pavement. They wheeled Noah out, his body, swallowed in hospital sheets and oxygen mask, fogging faintly with each breath. Red Hollow General Hospital rose in front of them, a square of gray concrete windows like dull mirrors. Inside, the corridors smelled of bleach and coffee. Nurses moved with clipped precision. Machines beeped, measured, recorded. Dr. Lucas Ramirez followed the gurney until they reached the diagnostic wing. "We'll do a CT and full scan," he told Rebecca. "They need to know exactly what's inside." She nodded, gripping her purse like a life vest. In the waiting area, vending machines hummed. A poster on the wall read, "Early detection saves lives, get screened today." Rebecca stared at the slogan until the words blurred. Behind the glass, doctors clustered around monitors. "Docteur." Karen Ellis, head of diagnostics, tapped her pen against the screen. Mass extends into the abdominal cavity. See that faint rhythm? Ramirez leaned closer. There's vascular flow. Ellis frowned. It's alive. When they called Rebecca in, her heart was already racing. Ellis spoke calmly. Her tone practiced neutral. Mrs. Whitaker, what we found is extremely rare. It's called Fetus in Fetu. It means during pregnancy, one twin absorbs the other. Some remnants continue developing inside the surviving child. Rebecca blinked, trying to grasp the words. You're saying my son has another inside him? Ellis hesitated. A malformed twin. Not conscious. Tissue, bones, organs. It's been growing for years. Rebecca's legs buckled. She caught herself on the metal chair. Is he dying? Ramirez stepped forward. We can remove it, but it's risky. The mass is large. He's weak. Her hands trembled. Why didn't anyone find it sooner? Ellis's eyes flickered to the floor. Most children have regular scans. Early signs are clear if someone's looking. Rebecca let out a hollow laugh. If someone's looking, if someone can afford to look. No one answered. Through the observation window, Noah lay under the white ring of the scanner, still as marble. The machine whirred around him, light tracing the outline of his body. When it was over, they wheeled him to a private room. Rebecca sat beside him, holding his hand. His eyes fluttered open. Mom, I'm here, baby. Did they find out what it is? She forced a smile. They did. They're going to fix it. Will it hurt? Her throat tightened. Not for long. He looked at her, studying her face the way children do when they already know the answer. You're scared. She brushed his hair back. Mothers are allowed to be scared. Outside the door, Ramirez and Ellis spoke in low voices. We need consent for surgery, Ellis said. The hospital board's already interested. A case this rare, people will want details. Details? Ramirez's jaw tightened. He's a child, not a specimen. Ellis sighed. Public interest brings funding. Without it, half these beds stay empty. He looked through the glass at Noah. Sometimes I think the sickness isn't just in their bodies. That evening, a nurse left the TV on in the waiting lounge. A local news anchor smiled into the camera. A Kentucky boy has stunned doctors with a 1 in 5 million medical condition carrying a living twin inside him. Sources from Red Hollow General confirm surgery is being planned. Rebecca's breath caught. How did they? The nurse changed the channel too late. Every network was repeating the story. The words "pregnant boy" flashed across the screen. By morning, reporters stood outside the hospital doors, microphones ready. Someone taped a note to the entrance, no media beyond this point. Inside, Rebecca kept the blinds closed. Cameras clicked through the glass anyway, Dr. Ramirez entered quietly, carrying coffee and exhaustion. I'm sorry, he said. We didn't leak it. Someone upstairs did. They're calling him names, Rebecca whispered. They don't even know him. I know. They think this is a miracle. Her voice cracked. It's not. It's a mistake that no one fixed. Ramirez set the coffee aside. You can still protect him. Let us operate. She nodded slowly. From the hallway came the buzz of reporters shouting questions. Is the boy awake? Is it true he's carrying a heartbeat inside him? Does the mother blame herself? Each question struck like a stone. In Noah's room, the blinds glowed faintly from the flash outside. He turned his head toward the window. Why are there people out there? Rebecca smoothed the blanket. Because people don't understand what they don't have to live through. He smiled weakly. I'm famous. She almost laughed, but couldn't. For now. Fame fades, baby. Kindness doesn't. He closed his eyes again, drifting back toward sleep. The narrator's voice slipped through the hum of machines. In Red Hollow, truth traveled slower than gossip, and sometimes the only way a story mattered was if it could sell. Later, as Rebecca stepped into the hall, a reporter called through the closing elevator doors. Mrs. Whitaker, do you blame the healthcare system? She met his gaze and said softly, It's not a system if it only works for the rich. The doors slid shut. Downstairs, Dr. Ellis prepared the surgical plan. Ramirez stood beside her reading the scan again. The mass had grown near vital arteries. Time was running out. Ellis exhaled. If we don't remove it soon, he'll go septic. Ramirez nodded. Tomorrow morning. As he walked away, his reflection caught in the glass door, tired human afraid. He murmured to himself, "Let's just hope we're not too late." Back upstairs, Rebecca sat by Noah's bed. The cameras had gone quiet for the night. Rain began again gentle against the windows. She leaned close, whispered, "They see you as a headline. I see you as my whole world." Noah stirred, half asleep, half dreaming. "Mom," he said, "if there's another heartbeat in me, does that mean I'm never really alone?" Her breath hitched. "You've never been alone?" "Baby." The machines hummed on, steady and impartial as the scene faded to black. Morning crept into Red Hollow General like a reluctant guest. The corridors smelled of disinfectant and stale coffee. Nurses moved in quiet rhythm, their shoes whispering against the linoleum. Rebecca stood outside the glass doors of the operating wing, hands clasped so tight her knuckles whitened. Inside, Noah lay on a gurney, the thin hospital gown swallowing his frame. Dr. Lucas Ramirez adjusted the IV line while Dr. Karen Ellis checked the monitors. "Ready?" Ellis asked. Ramirez nodded. "Let's begin." Rebecca tried to speak, but no sound came. The doors swung shut, sealing her out with a hiss of pressurized air. A nurse touched her arm. "He'll be okay." She wanted to believe that, but the words felt like paper-light empty. She lowered herself onto the bench, staring at the sterile floor, and began to pray without realizing it. Inside the operating room, everything was light and precision. Machines hummed. The overhead lamp glared white. Ellis's voice was calm, clipped. Scalpel. Ramirez's gloved hands moved carefully, tracing the incision line. The monitor pulsed in steady beeps, each one a fragile heartbeat tethering Noah to the world. Ellis leaned over the screen. "We're close. The mass is attached to the mesentery. Careful, vascular supplies complex." Ramirez's voice dropped. "He's losing pressure." "Keep him stable," Ellis ordered. "Suction." The beeping quickened uneven. The nurse read out numbers: blood pressure, heart rate, oxygen falling, slipping, trying to climb back. Rebecca watched from the hallway window. The scene inside looked unreal, like a movie projected on glass. She saw Ramirez bend over her son, saw the flicker of red gloves, the glint of instruments. The door's thick pane muffled everything, but she could still feel the tension in every movement. Her breath fogged the window. She pressed her forehead to the glass. "Please, God," she whispered. "I'll pay any price." Just not him. Inside, Noah's heartbeat stuttered. The narration shifted. When the body slips away, the mind doesn't always follow. Sometimes it drifts to where the world looks softer and everything hurts less. Noah opened his eyes and found himself standing in a field. The light was gold endless. Wheat brushed against his hands as he walked. The air was warm, sweet. A boy stood a few yards ahead, facing the horizon. He turned when Noah called out, and it was like looking into a mirror. The boy smiled. "You finally made it." Noah blinked. "Who are you?" The boy stepped closer. Bare feet, leaving no prints in the dust. "The part of you that never got to live." They studied each other, the same face, the same eyes, one thinner, one whole. "Are you angry?" Noah asked. The other boy shook his head. "You carried me all this time. How could I be? I didn't know. You weren't supposed to." Back in the operating room, Ramirez's voice broke through the fog. "He's flatlining. Starting compressions. Ellis called charge to 200. Clear." The body on the table jolted. The monitor screamed, then hesitated, then screamed again. Rebecca heard the muffled shout, saw the flash through the window. Her knees buckled. The nurse caught her before she hit the floor. She sobbed, shaking her head. "He's just a boy. Please." The nurse didn't answer. In the wheat field, Noah and the other boy sat side by side. Wind rolled the stalks in slow waves. "I can't stay," Noah whispered. The boy smiled softly. "Then go. You've done enough." I'm scared. Don't be. You're not losing me, you're freeing me. He reached out and pressed a hand against Noah's chest. Beneath it, a single heartbeat echoed like thunder. Noah's breath caught. He felt warmth flood through him, not pain, just light. In the real world, the monitor beeped once, then again. Pulse Ramirez said, eyes wide, "We've got a pulse." Ellis exhaled. "Keep it steady, we're almost there." But the rhythm faltered again like a wave receding. Ramirez's hands trembled. He's slipping. Noah looked up. The other boy was fading, his outline thinning into the light. "Wait," Noah said. "What about Mom?" The voice came like an echo from everywhere. "She'll hear me when the wind moves. She'll know you're safe." The wheat rippled one last time, gold turning white. The monitor drew a single, unbroken line. In the hallway, Rebecca heard the sound, the long, flat note that no mother forgets. She pressed her palms against the glass, shaking her head. "No, no, no, please." Dr. Ellis stepped back from the table. Ramirez's hands fell to his sides. The room went still. Ellis whispered, "Time of death, 9:43 a.m. Rebecca sank to the floor. The nurse knelt beside her helpless. Ramirez stood frozen, the silence unbearable. "He almost made it," he said, voice hollow. "He fought harder than anyone I've seen." Ellis pulled off her gloves, each snap echoing like punctuation. Sometimes they fight too long. Ramirez turned away, whispering to no one. Sometimes we start too late. The narration settled low and quiet. Every crossing asks for something in return. Some give their breath, others their silence. In the end, what remains isn't death, it's the sound left behind when love lets go. Rebecca was still kneeling when Ramirez approached. He crouched, his face shadowed. "I'm sorry," he said simply. She nodded, tears falling soundlessly. He was never meant to carry this. Ramirez hesitated. "No child should have to." She looked up through swollen eyes. "Then why does it keep happening?" He had no answer. The light above the OR dimmed. Nurses covered Noah's body. Rebecca pressed her forehead to the glass one last time, her breath leaving small clouds on the surface. Her voice broke to a whisper. "I only wanted to keep him safe." Both of them. Inside the room, the machines powered down one by one until the only sound left was the faint hiss of the ventilator turning itself off. Morning sunlight slid through the broken blinds of the trailer, cutting thin lines across the dust. The air smelled of rain and rust. Somewhere outside, a dog barked and the world went on as if nothing sacred had ever happened. Rebecca sat at the kitchen table wrapped in Noah's old blanket. It still held a trace of his scent soap paper and something she could never name. The coffee in front of her had gone cold. On the counter, the radio hummed between static and silence. Then a voice broke through, calm, professional. "The Kentucky Health Department reminds families early checkups save lives. Visit your local clinic today." Rebecca closed her eyes. The words sounded kind, but too late. Her gaze drifted to the photo on the table, her and Noah in front of the trailer, both smiling, the afternoon sun washing them in gold. The picture had faded, but his eyes still looked alive. She whispered, "They talk about saving lives, but they never saved yours." Outside, the wind picked up, nudging the curtains. She stood and went to the sink. Through the window, the trailer park looked the same: kids on bikes, Mrs. Dalton tending her tomatoes, laundry lines swaying in the wind. The world unbothered. Rebecca turned the faucet, let the water run, and stared at her reflection in the window. She didn't cry anymore. The tears had come and gone like weather. What was left was quieter an ache that lived beneath breathing. The radio crackled again. For a moment, it was only static. Then came a whisper, soft, young. "Mom?" She froze. "I'm okay now." The mug slipped from her hand and shattered against the floor. She looked at the radio, trembling. Noah, silence. She reached out and turned the dial. The static shifted, deepened, then cleared. For an instant, she thought she heard a heartbeat. Rebecca sank to her knees. "Baby, is that you?" The faintest laugh flickered through the static, warm, familiar, impossible. "Don't be sad, Mom. You did everything you could. Her breath came in shudders. I didn't do enough. You loved me. That was enough. The radio hissed again, then quieted. The narrator's voice slipped in like wind through open curtains. Sometimes love doesn't end with the body. Sometimes it lingers in echoes in air, in everything we touch after they're gone. Rebecca turned off the radio. The silence that followed wasn't empty. It was full of memory, of forgiveness. She stood, opened the door, and stepped outside. The sunlight touched her face. She looked up as if listening for something beyond sound. A single gust of wind passed through the trailer park, lifting the corner of a paper on the table inside. It was a faded flyer, free checkups for low-income families expired 2018. The paper fluttered once, then stilled. Rebecca smiled faintly. If only someone had told me sooner, she whispered. In the distance, a train horn echoed through Red Hollow long and low like a heartbeat stretched across the hills. And then silence.